All right, so let's talk. Here we go. So, what is the difference between accessibility and inclusion? This is from Chapman, and I like this definition a lot. Accessible design focuses on the outcome or end result of a design project. Inclusive design is closely related to accessibility, but rather than an outcome, it's a methodology for how to approach design. It's a process for creating a design that can be used by a diverse group of people. Are y'all familiar with the WCAG? Anybody? Anybody here? Just let me know in the chat. I will be asking questions. I hope you chat with me. Some people say WCAG, WCAG, WCAG. I don't know. Everybody says it differently. I say WCAG. So the web content accessibility guidelines are part of guidelines published by the Web Accessibility Initiative and World Wide Web Consortium, the main international standard organization for the internet. So the web content accessibility guidelines are they really can be overwhelming when you first look at them, but they are give a really good sense of what is needed to make the web accessible. So there's four areas to the web content accessibility guidelines. Here I have an image from Carton Network. The image has a vision with an icon of an eye with a cross out, hearing an icon of an ear with a slash inside. Motor, it's a icon of a hand holding a phone, and cognition, which is an icon of a head with a question mark on the inside of it. So the four areas of the web content accessibility guidelines are perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. POUR, Pour. And for perceivable, this means like when you are working on anything for the web, this is what should happen. These are the things that you should have. So for perceivable, you should make sure you're covering vision and hearing. For operable, motor. For understandable, cognition. And robust is cognition and motor. So, what to keep in mind? You want to keep in mind these different disabilities. So, visual, there's blindness, low vision, color blindness, hearing, deafness, or hard of hearing, motor, inability to use a mouse, slow response time, and limited motor control, and cognitive, learning disabilities, distractibility, and inability to focus on large amounts of information. So, one of the things that I like to look at and think about when I think about inclusion and accessibility is universal design. Is anybody here familiar with universal design? Any architects in the house? Anyone? Yes, no, maybe so?
Yep,
Okay, a
me.
few. Yeah,
I am an
okay.
architect. I am an
Yeah?
architect.
Oh, you
You're
are?
getting a lot of positive responses in the chat.
Okay. So, yeah, so universal design was coined by Ronald Mace and a team of architects, product designers, and engineers in the 90s. And although universal design is really for buildings, it can be applied to the digital realm. So, for universal design, there are seven principles. The seven principles are equitable use, flexibility in use, simple and intuitive use, perceptible information, tolerance for error, low physical effort, size and approach for size and space for approach and user. So let's talk about equitable use. Color contrast is the number one issue on the web. Still, it is shocking. Shocking. So here I have four images. On the left, it is a yellow background with black text that says easy to read. The next is a blue background with blue text, which is hard to read. There's a red background with red text, which is also hard to read. and then a darker blue background with blue text that is hard to read. Do you all agree with this? This is a thing. Still, it is shocking to me that that color contrast is still number one. But this, when you make things that are higher in contrast, you're providing equitable use. So flexibility in use. Are you allowing for folks to do resizing? I know that you're doing a jam, so you're not really making anything in real life. But if you are making something in real life, make sure that it can be made bigger or smaller based on the user's needs. So I like to say WTF, but not in the way that people think, okay? Because I like to say, what's the focus, right? So here I have an image like you would have on a form of email. So on the left-hand side, it's email with a little box around it, and it's not highlighted. And then I have another, on the right here, I have an email box that is highlighted. So you want to make sure one way you could provide simple and intuitive use is by providing focus. WTF. Think of it in a different way now. What's the focus? Okay, so perceptible information. Where are my information architects in the house? Where are y'all? Hey, information architects.
Woo!
Woo, yes, I want to hear from you all. So, perceptible information without proper hierarchy, we're not able to perceive things properly. So you want to make sure that you are laying out things in such a way that they make sense, that the top thing is at the top, the bottom thing is at the bottom, and laying out information architecture in such a way that people can perceive what is necessary. Tolerance for error. Allow for undo and redo. It's pretty straightforward. I think of information architecture actually with this tolerance for error, because so many times, in my past, I've had students design stuff and then they will leave a user trapped. You know what I'm talking about? So they leave one way to get there, but they don't make a way to come out of it. So, allow for undo and redo. And then low physical effort. I think of forms often because you want to make forms that don't require more information than is needed. I haven't, this is a GIF of Hyper Gym where there's a person who is fit and not so fit. And the form has a register and a login. For the register, there's a username and the password. And for the login, there's a username, email, and password to sign up. So make things as simple as possible. Don't make people give more information than is necessary. And size and space for approach and use. Think of all users. I have here an image of the Microsoft Inclusive Design Toolkit. Are folks familiar with the Microsoft Inclusive Design Toolkit? A bunch of you are, I'm sure. For those of you who are not, I would definitely recommend checking it out. But the focus of the Microsoft Inclusive Design Toolkit is showing that, let's take, for example, somebody with one arm, okay? One arm to use whatever product that they're needing to use. Their disability could be temporary, it could be situational, or it could be permanent. So a temporary situation of a one arm person could be somebody holding a baby in one arm, right? Temporary could be someone who has a broken arm, and permanent would be somebody who is born without an arm. So there is a way to show that, and that's what the Microsoft Inclusive Design Toolkit does. So, you're in this service jam. How's it going? Let me know in the chat. How is it going? How is the service jam going? Great. How are you helping people get to where they need to be? Right? I heard you just finished interviews, so you're getting information, right? Getting to collaborate with others. Really cool. You want to think about who is viewing or using what you create. And these are some things to consider for inclusive design that I think, sometimes they just get put on the back burner because you have this idea of this cool thing that you really want to create. So for inclusive design, you want to think about ability, age, gender, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status. I think the assumption that a lot of us have, especially here we are with most of us have our high speed internet. But the truth is, more than half of the United States does not have high speed internet, right? And when we think about things on a global perspective, it's not. It's a lot of people do not have the internet speeds we have whatsoever, and they have rolling blackouts and other things like that to consider. So when we are thinking about our designs, maybe we're not using such heavy imagery, right? For example. And here's some things to consider when creating experiences. Could somebody experience this thing without the visuals? Because if someone is blind, they more than likely would be using a screen reader. If someone is deaf, could they experience this thing without sound? Could they do it one-handed, no-handed, seated, or standing with their voice or without their voice, or using some sort of switch control? And I love this. I don't remember where I found this, but this is by Josh Clark. Originally, this is a Bruce Lee quote, and the illustration is by Stephanie Walter. Content is like water. You put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Basically, you don't know how someone's going to access your information, right? For example, if you build a website, this website may be available on my mobile device. It may be available on my desktop computer. It might be available by me using my Google Home, right? So there are different ways that people might access the content. So here are some tips, some general accessibility tips for you all. Left aligned text. So left aligned text is easier to read. When text is centered, it can be difficult for those with dyslexia and cognitive disorders. Avoid use of all caps. So use of all caps can cause cognitive overload. If you do use all caps, use it for short phrases. Add alternative text. So alternative text should be provided for all images that convey meaning. And alternative text is good for folks who use screen readers or who may be in an area with slow internet connection, because sometimes those images may not download. And so if you provide that alternative text, then people know what that image is. You want to incorporate inclusion and accessibility from the beginning. You all are in this jam, and I hope you're thinking about all your possible users. So some inclusive design tips: get to know who you're using for or designing for. You are, because you just did some interviews. Make inclusive design a part of every stage of your product development. And this one you can do. Assure color contrast is clear enough for those with vision issues, including color blindness and low vision. And this is a comic by Michael Giangreco that I really, really like a lot. The scene is a school on a very snowy day, and there are kids who are waiting to get into the school, and there's a person with a shovel. There is a person who is in a wheelchair, and the person in the wheelchair says, "Could you please shovel the ramp?" And the person with the shovel says, "All these other kids are waiting to use the stairs. When I get through shoveling them off, then I will clear the ramp for you." And then the person in the wheelchair says, "But if you shovel the ramp, we can all get in." What does this mean? Let me know in the chat. Let me know some thoughts in the chat. Anyone care to share? I know it's a little delayed. So someone said that's beautiful. Um, use solutions that are accessible to all, not just one population or type of user. Inclusive practice benefit everyone. Designing for inclusion isn't just for who we think it is. When you solve real problems for real people, you solve them for everyone at once. When you design for inclusion and accessibility, everyone benefits. Wow, so profound and easy. It is for the betterment of all. Put the effort into creating the environment that benefits the most number of people, even if it's not the first thing you think of. Sometimes the more accessible a solution is, the more inclusive it is. Paradigm shifts are difficult but powerful. Let's see, they need a 1-inch hole, not a 1-inch drill bit, right? Lisa, care to clarify? Because I'm not sure. I'm not into tools.
I'm new to all this. I'm trying to quote a slide that Yosef shared with us, and I don't have it exactly. Would you tell it? And am I applying that correctly, Yosef?
Kind of. I think I meant something a little bit different. For me, the drill bit and the hole is basically saying, like, what's the real need? What's the real problem that someone's trying to solve? In this case, it's not exactly like, obviously the real problem to solve is to get everyone inside the school.
That's what and I'm a school teacher. So the real problem to me is everyone needs to get in, like open the door, don't try and fix a bit of it. But yes, that's what I was referencing, and I will.
It's okay. I would say this is totally, shooting from the hip, but I would say the solving the problem by drilling the hole instead of giving them the drill bit would say remove the stairs altogether, maybe, and just have a ramp for everyone.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you. And to note something that was said in the chat, we don't want to focus on what benefits the most number of people. We want to focus on what benefits those who most critically need the thing. Like, for example, the ramp. Everyone can use it. Whereas most people probably would use the stairs generally because that's the most, and there are probably fewer people who need the ramp. But if you do the ramp or if you build it with a ramp, everyone can get in. So it's not about the numbers, but it's about what's essential for some that is useful for all.
I'll just build on that real fast and say, when they started putting ramps in at the ends of sidewalks, on curbs, originally they're like, oh, this helps people with wheelchairs. And you're like, no, it helps people with strollers. It helps people pulling luggage. You kind of end up solving lots of problems for lots of people when you solve for the edges.
Yeah, thank you. Essential for some, useful for all. Shouldn't be prioritizing one group over another. Sometimes we don't immediately see the ways something physical presents an obstacle to people. Prioritize the most vulnerable, not the most. The person with the power to create change is not listening oftentimes. And sometimes we need to look up and listen and sometimes we need to look up and listen and then staying fixed on a solution that makes sense to you. Thank you all for sharing that. So this is from Don Norman, who said, do not think that thoughtful design is just for the elderly or the sick or the disabled. In the field of design, this is called inclusive design for a reason. It helps everyone. So thank you all. If you care to reach out to me, I'm pretty open and available because I'm not teaching this summer, yay. So you can email me, and I'm at Twitter at @reg_INEE, and my email is rg1508@nyu.edu. Any questions? Oh, Dieter Ram, who put this, this indifference towards people and the reality in which they live is actually the one and only cardinal sin in design. That is the truth.
Truth. Anybody else have questions? Did the pandemic change anybody's perception on design, and how did it affect our folks? their levels of empathy? How did it change how you started to look at the world and in your application of design? Anybody want to comment on that? Has your definition of inclusion changed in the past year?
It was fascinating to see how quickly people could pivot to a remote workplace for the pandemic, when people with disabilities and people from historically marginalized communities, maybe in remote places, have requested it and said it could work for years.
Very true.
It's once the people with privilege needed it, we can do it. But once the people without, grr.
Yep. True.
The remote research really enabled us to include a lot of people across the country and across the demographics, and especially those who are with disabilities, who do benefit from a lot of government services that are available online now or are becoming available online. Because, you know, some people don't drive to the field offices because they just, you know, for whatever disability reasons, it was just really great to do that and to feel that power of including these people in research. Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I mean, Zoom added closed captioning, which was really so great. They just need it in breakout rooms now, but you know, it's a start. let's get it together.
But you still have to pay for it.
I'm gonna read Lindsay Keck's comment. Regine, I noticed that in your presentation, you are very descriptive in your language voice track, not expecting that everyone can see your slides. I presume that it is also very intentional in your own practice and presentation. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. So I get the pleasure of teaching. I get to teach an assistive technology class, co-teach, and I co-teach with someone who is blind. And so I have learned that I need to describe what is on my slides. And you know what? Frankly, it's helpful because, you know, when we've been at home, people have families, people have kids, people have dog distractions. So if you're being descriptive, and somebody's not necessarily able to look at the screen, then it's better storytelling, you know, in a lot of ways of like to get people involved. So I'm still working at it. Some people will describe themselves, you know, what they look like, but you know, some people don't care. So it all depends. Yeah, but I do my best to be as descriptive as possible.
Awesome. We'll take one last question. Anybody? Awesome. Again,
All right.
we'll have all of Regine's references and in the reference sheet that we're going to send out after the jam is over. Regine, thank you so much for your presentation. We all learned a lot. Yay!
I hope you learned something today.
Thank you for being with us.
Happy Juneteenth, everyone.
Happy
And
Juneteenth.
I'm going to say this, go Brooklyn, because Brooklyn's playing Milwaukee Bucks tonight, and I will be at the game.
New York in the house. All right.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Okay.
Good to see you, Glenette.
Good to see you. I hope to see you in January because we're trying to do UX camp in person.
Okay. If it's in person, I'll be there. All right. Bye.